Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a black and white tutorial. It's one of my favorite techniques. I'm going to throw a little bit of color in it, but I am going to do most of the entire image in black and white. And I'm going to use these, let's see, 5 colors. And hopefully you can see them there. They're the W's, the odd numbers. Okay. And then for my one color that I'm going to add, it's going to be the greens, or these greens. Okay. And of course I will call them off as I go along. Oh yeah, and there's a shout out for Tina Keller, right? There you go. Gave you a shout out. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start with is my W3. And I have cleaned these out completely, changed the nibs, so hopefully they won't juice up on me today. But if they do, then I guess I'm going to have to cut the camera and cuss it out, and then I'll come back. Alright, so with my W3, I'm going to outline where where I want the shading. And usually I will go in and do just the skins first, and then the hair, and then this, and then that. But this time, because the whole image is actually going to be colored in one tone, which is the black and white tone, or monochromatic tone is, I think it's technically called. And it just smeared. That's all right. I've let this image dry for almost 5 days, and it just kind of smeared right at her scar there. And sometimes it does, and I think that why it probably didn't now is because my marker, like I said before, it was cleaned out and juiced up, and I put a brand new nib on it, so I think it's very saturated right now, which means it probably has a lot of power, so it just smears. It smeared. It's okay. We're going to try to get over it. Try anyway. Okay, so this is kind of where I want to my shading, or, you know, and as I've said it before, I lay down the medium color, or what I feel is the medium color first, because it kind of helps me create a guideline of where I want the shading to go. It kind of helps me lay out my picture, or excuse me, my coloring. And again, I'm not going to do just the skin because I'm coloring the whole thing in that monochromatic way. Then I'm going to go ahead and just finish everything, not just the skin. And this is the medium color. It's not going to be the lightest, but it's also not the darkest, so I'm not going to go into it in my crease areas, because that's going to be darker. And on her bandages, I'm going to leave some areas uncolored, because when I add more color to it, I want to create folds and depth to it, so I'm going to leave a little bit of white untouched. It just makes it a lot easier when I'm trying to blend my colors a little bit later. And I think I've said this too before, sometimes if I run across it this time I will mention it, but sometimes there are such small areas that I don't bother doing depth to it, like, you know, using all my colors to it, because it's just so small you're not going to see it anyways, so there's really kind of no point. Make sense? And again, I'm going to leave some uncolored areas just because more colors will come in. And then there are some colors that I don't want to touch because, again, it's a black and white. You want to leave some white to it. It will all make sense at the end. I've got a little live audience here today, so you might hear a little bit of movement and giggling. It's just Dawn and Rio. That was my chair, I swear. Now on this, I'm not going to color the entire thing, just a little bit on the top, because I'm going to feather in that color. The bow is the color that I'm going to add the green to, so I'm just going to use a little bit of W3 on there, and I'll show you what I mean by feathering. Now I do want to color in her eyebrows. And her eyes. Again, basically you're just going to use one color for everything. Next, her lips. And I think I've mentioned this before, I do leave a little tiny white line in the middle. Instead of blending it out, I just leave it white just to kind of make it look like the lipstick is shiny. Very little though. Okay, I'm going to start the hair. Oh, let me finish the skull here. Okay. And I do these again with long strokes with just the tip of my marker. Mostly the tip anyways, not just the tip. I shouldn't say that because it's not just the tip. I'm not creating super thin, fine lines. I'm just kind of trying to make the strokes long and medium is what I'm going to say. Thin comes with the last color, and that's when I really hold my pen upright. And this one should go pretty quick because luckily it's straight hair, and straight hair for me usually goes a lot quicker. So I don't have to curve my strokes as much. I don't have to worry about my strokes in the smaller areas because usually that's going to be dark because it has a shadow because of the bow. So I don't do my wispy long strokes on in those areas. Now I want to leave one. Usually Bride of Frankenstein has, dang it, I touched something. And now there's makeup on there. Ugh. Sometimes you can remove little smudges like that. I was just telling Dawn and Rio that I try to make it a habit to clean off my fingers using those little alcohol prep pads, so that when you place your fingers down on your art or on your image, you don't do things like I just did. And sometimes it'll come off, sometimes it won't. Luckily, I'm going to cut her out, maybe, or I'll just have to redo the whole thing because this smudge is going to bother me. But for now, just because I'm teaching or showing you guys, I'm just going to try and ignore it. And, sorry, so what I was saying is you want to leave a white area because usually the Bride of Frankenstein has like a little white lightning area where it hit lightning or something. So, however, you do want it to look white, so you want to go over it very lightly with your W3. And when I go back into it, it'll be with my W1, and then I will leave it alone just to create that white look. I don't know what I smudged on there because I'm not even wearing facial makeup. I wear makeup, just not foundation, so I don't know where that reddish is coming from. Maybe the blush. I don't know. All I know is it just aggravated me. Okay, so basically the W3 is done. That's kind of what she looks like. Okay. Now we're going to go in with my W5. And I'm going to start bringing out those areas that I want to really show, what are we talking here? Shade. I'm sorry, I'm a little off today. So, I'm not going to cover, of course, the entire W3 areas. And you do want to go into it in her cheeks because that's going to create the blush look, but in black and white. And it looks a little messy right now and it just doesn't look right, but it will change once we start blending out those colors. Sorry, put my whole hand in front of the camera. Again, I have the little alcohol pad because I am constantly touching my face or moving my hair away from my face, and I think that's what I'm doing is I'm grabbing blush or just makeup from somewhere on my face and I keep touching my image and keep smudging it. Okay, so you kind of want to outline on the inside of your W3, not completely covering the whole W3 areas, and then you're going to start adding color to those creases I talked about that are going to be the darkest. So like inside the fold of her arm here. And the areas that you know are going to be the darkest, again, the frame of her compact hair is so thin that I'm going to go ahead and color in the entire area with my W5, and I will probably add more color to it a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and color in with my W5. Now with this one again, you want to go inside the W3 and kind of make like thinner, wispier lines so that you can still see that W3, but at the same time what you're doing is adding kind of accent to those bandages and depth and folds. And sometimes I find that when I go in certain areas with my W3, I don't worry too much about light source. I know that I should. I'm hoping to get, like if there were a coming in from one end, then I would worry about light source. But when I do, that's the other reason why I start with my kind of medium color, because it's a lot more forgiving. If you start with your darkest and you realize that you've accidentally colored in an area that should be lightest, you can go over that with your dark. With your dark, you're kind of stuck. Create your own pleats. I know I should be better at drawing pleats in, but I kind of like leaving the pleats alone to your imagination, just so that you can decide where you want the pleats and how you want to add those pleats on there. Okay, and again I said that I wasn't going to touch the bow. I just needed a little bit just so that I can show you what a little bit of color onto that bow, or a little bit of black and white, you get a totally different effect, rather than just coloring it all one green and stuff. You'll see what I'm talking about and kind of where I'm going with that. Again, this area just darkened. And I'm not going to touch this one here, because that's my white streak that she has in her hair. Oops, I went out of the line, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm going to cut her out. And if I don't cut her out, I usually use my Copic white to cover those areas. Or, you know what, sometimes the white out does the job just the same. And I definitely twist my image around a lot, and I think you guys know that about me as well, just because it feels a little more natural flowing when I color toward me rather than away from me. I feel like I have less control. Oh, she's kind of starting to come along real nice. I'm sorry, and I'll keep looking because I know that sometimes I'm so into what I'm doing that I forget the angle of a camera, and I forget that I can sometimes block what I'm doing. Now, let's see. It's the same with the hair here, of course. Okay. That was the W5. Now before I start blending out, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of areas with my W7. Just because sometimes it helps it. It just helps it all. Just trust me. And I know a lot of people think, or they freak out a little just thinking, you know, well, is it possible to leave, or what is it that somebody was asking me once? They were saying, oh, I forgot a little bit of W5 there. They were saying they can't believe that I do the entire thing with my first color that sometimes they have problems when they do that, that it will dry in some areas and then they have problems blending. I haven't come across that just yet, but I do understand that that can be scary, because once it dries or once the color sets, sometimes you may not be able to move it around so much. But so far, again, I haven't found that that's an issue with coloring it this way, doing all one color at first and then, you know, continuing on, instead of coloring one area with all your markers, W1, 2, 3, and so on, and then finally moving on to another area. That's just kind of time consuming for me. But you know, it is all about how comfortable you feel and how you want to do it. Now, if this were skin colors, my W7 would serve me as if I were doing the no, sorry, not the W, the E04. I'm just kind of accenting a couple of areas here that I want later to blend out. But then at the same time, it is one of the important colors for my hair color. So I'm doing a little bit of both. Darkening some shady areas, and then of course I'm going to finish off my hair. Well, not finish it, but continue it on. Once I start going in with my W7, I'm a little more selective. It's not that important for me to use it on every single part. Because it is going to get blended out. Basically, I use my darkest color on the larger areas, like the hair and the skirt will have quite a bit of it, but the other areas not so much. And on the bandages, very thin, short strokes. You want to see more of the bottom colors than the darkest colors, or the darkest color in this case. Okay. And here's the part where it sometimes will start juicing up on me bad, but I'm hoping that because I've switched out the colors, sorry, not the colors, the nibs, and cleaned them out, you know, and when I say clean, you don't clean a new nib, of course, but I tend to clean out the barrel, or the cap, just because that goop in there kind of makes a difference. It'll pick it up on your tip, and then it'll really juice up your colors. Nobody likes that. But again, right now it's working really well. I know this looks kind of wonky right now, but it will all look better once we blend out those colors. So now we want to go in, again, just a couple areas here and there. And then we want to finish off the hair. And with the hair, I'm going to do my W7 and then W9. And then I might even do the 100. 100, I just find that it will give it a really nice shine. I don't know if it's because it gets goopy or what, but I really like adding that 100 to all my black hair combos. I don't always, but when I do, more often than not, I will go to that 100. Just depends again on how the outcome of my original colors turn out when I'm doing black hair. Now this is going to look kind of, or seem silly, but sometimes this drives me crazy that I just kind of went over that line. I will outline just right above, like say that hair part, so that I can start my strokes away from it, not so close to where I can actually cross that line. And I just find that it has helped me not go over that line, or, you know, go outside the line, as one says. This way I know that at least I've got that covered, because that would be a dark area. And then I can start my strokes without worrying that I'm going to cross the lines and mess this up. Just like that. I'll add a little bit of black to him so that it covers up my crossing the line there. And this image is available now that I've done the video with it. I will put the link on there where you can find it. She actually is not just plain like this. She comes plain, and she also comes with a border around her, or a frame. And the frame by itself, and her by herself, and break it. I sometimes try to break them down as much as possible, just because it's fun to use her like this, and it's also fun to use her with her frame that she was originally drawn with. And this again was inspired by Rio. She wants this as her first tattoo when she's 35. Or older. Now, if you're coloring along with me, don't feel stressed that you can't keep up. You know, the cool thing about it is it's a recording, so you can pause it and move along at your own pace. Coloring takes time. It's definitely not a hobby for impatient people, which is strange because I'm very impatient. But you know, the biggest thing I always recommend is that you just do it when you've got time and you just want to kind of sit and enjoy. For me, it's very therapeutic. Just kind of sit here and stare at my little lines as I create them, my coloring. Same with drawing. Usually have Jewel playing in the background, but when I record my videos like that with music in the background, YouTube will sometimes block in certain areas or in certain countries because I guess it's I guess you're just not allowed to use music freely like that, which I understand. Alright, so she's coming along. I'm going to go ahead and darken in her eyebrows because I think that I want them to be very dark. I want them to be the darkest, which in this case actually would be the the 100 once I apply the 100 onto the hair, but then it just looks a little too dark. So I think she looks really good there. Okay. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to take my W1 and start blending out her skin. So I'm going to grab from all areas and bring out those colors, start meshing them together and bringing them out. Kind of mixing the W3 with the W5 and the 5 with the 7 and so on and so on. Just kind of mixing them together. And at first it's going to look a little washed out, but we're going to go back in there in some areas with our 5s and our 3s. Not the 7 so much, but we'll see. It just all depends how it all blends out. I try not to just smear. I am still, of course, going over the eyelashes and stuff, but sometimes when I smear is when I kind of get that smudge. And when the ink runs, that's the last thing I want to do after working on this already for, you know, a certain amount of period, or having come so far already, we're kind of almost done. And to have to restart it, I'd have to restart the whole video and start everything again, because that's another thing that drives me nuts is the uploading of the videos. And if I have a pause or a break in that video, it's just a pain. So I want to try not to do that. Again, with her bandages, I don't want to cover all the white completely. So I just kind of go over my previous colors lightly, very sporadic. I don't make a point of covering up the entire white areas. Now with this, I don't go over the W7 too much, just because the W1 has, you know, of course, less pigment than the rest of them. So I think that means it just has a little more alcohol in them. So it's going to blend it out or wash it out, and I don't want that. So I do touch the W7 just a little, but not too much. Right now what I'm trying to do is just blend out those colors. Those other colors, and start covering up my area. Okay. Again, very lightly on this white streak as well, just to blend out the color and make it look a little more natural. And blend out the colors of her eyes. There we go. Okay, now we're going to go back with a couple colors. I'm going to start with my 5. I don't like this. It's just how the W7 just ends there. So I want it to look a little more gradient. So now I'm going to go over the W7 with my W5 and stretch out that W5 a little bit more. And I'm rushing, so I'm not doing the pleats as perfect as I'd like them to be. I just kind of want to give you guys the basic of it. And so I'm not going to do it as perfect as it should be. Again, I'm going to go over a couple of areas here and there, pulling on that W7, but not washing it out. I've gone outside the line again. That's okay. Okay. I want her cheeks to look a little bit like blush, dark blush, but not too dark, right? I guess I think of when I see a black and white photograph, and if the person has, you know, blush or makeup, you're going to see slightly darker areas. And that's how or why I do this part as well, just to kind of make it look like she's got blush. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to go in with my W3 and pull that 5 out. Pull and mix and blend it just so it softens it up, but it kind of still stays dark, like a shady area. And it also blends the W5 blush area so that it looks a little more natural. She's looking real pretty so far, I think. The skirt's not working the way I wanted it to, but that's okay. Again, I just wanted to show you guys, you know, how to do the black and white. I go over all my colors more often, and I start blending out those colors at the end just because I want it to have a gradient look and not a color stopped right here and then the next color streaky kind of look. But I might have to rethink that or redo this image because that skirt is just not working for me. But it might change in just a few minutes. Again, sometimes I start doing this and then I don't like it, but after working on it and adding a little more here, a little more there, I can actually sometimes fix it. So we'll see. Again, I'm going over some of these areas with my W3. And this too helps me find some areas that I did not go over with my other colors that I should have. Like on here, there should be a little bit of 7 and 5 in there. But again, I'm just doing this quickie just for you guys, just so you kind of get the whole black and white technique. I know it's hard for some people. I actually, like I said, it's one of my favorites. It just looks so classic. Okay, so she's almost done. I'm going to go over a couple of areas with my W1 again, just because it's personal preference, not that you have to each time. You don't have to go over backwards is what I call it, because a lot of the times I will put down my colors. I'll start with, like I said, W3, then 5, 7, then 1, and then I'll go reverse over a couple of areas using W7, 5, 3, then 1. Sometimes I'll do that, sometimes I won't. So right now I just want to hit a couple of areas that I want to smooth out with my W1. But other than that, I am really loving how she's turning out. Nah, the skirt's just not going to work for me. No, actually, it's not turning out too bad. I printed her so large so that I can see all my tiny little mistakes that I don't like. But I will survive, I'm sure. And I really like the gradient look when it switches over from one color to the other kind of gradually instead of these harsh streaks, which is why I go over everything with my lightest color at the end, like I did now. Okay, so she's almost done. I'm going to add the 100 to her hair, because other than that, her face, everything is kind of exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to add, hang on a minute. These need a little bit of 5 in here somewhere. Just so it doesn't look flat and it looks like, you know, the bandages are really folding here and there. There we go. Okay. Alright, let me add that 100 and you will see the difference. Oh, wait, the skull. The skull, I forgot him. So I'm going to go in with my W3 and bring out those other colors, but I'm not going to go over the entire area. I'm going to leave just a little bit of white there, because I'm going to hit that with my W1 and bring out all the colors together. Or not bring them out, but kind of mesh them together. So now it's my W1 and I will go in and just blend them all together. And they're blended, but you can still see the difference in different tones and different colors in there. There we go. Okay. Now, again, with my black, this is the 100. I'm going to go in there and just do a couple of streaks here and there. I don't want to cover the entire area. I still want the W7s and the 5s and the 3s and all that to show through. Just kind of gives it the individual strand look. At least that's what I call it. It just makes it shiny. Now, again, I don't know if it's just because my black 100 is very juicy or what, but it just kind of seems to give it a really good shine. And this is going to be on my wall. I'm going to make a birthday canvas, or a canvas for Rio. So I'll have to remember to take a picture of her on her birthday so I can put the picture on there. And I'm hoping she will do her green eye makeup. It's my favorite on her. It just makes her look so pretty. She's so fair-skinned that sometimes she wonders if she should be using such bright colors, but I think she should. It really makes her eyes come out and pop. Now, this is another thing I do a lot. When you're coloring, you put your hand down, and that 100 is very juicy, so I probably have it on my hands now. So if I put down my hand anywhere and it has that smudge, it's going to get on my image. So I will take a piece of scratch paper or something, a napkin, whatever, and I will lay it over the area I've already colored. This way I don't smudge that black ink that got on me. That might help. Many of you, I know I do it all the time. I went into my bow with the black. Dang it. That's alright. I'll fix it. I'll fix it once I lay down the green. There we go. She's looking real pretty. I'm going to check my napkin here because I saw that it caught a little bit of color when I was doing my strokes here, and sometimes that will cause some problems as well. I hate that I can't move this to where the strokes are coming toward me, but that black is still very juicy and I do not want to put my hand in it. There we go. Okay. So her hair is done. Very nice and shiny and black. So now the final step is the bow, which is the little green that I wanted to add, the little bit of color to my black and white. So I'm going to start with my YG21, and I'm going to go over the entire area, even the black that I laid down the W3. I'm trying to be super careful because I'm still afraid of touching that black and smudging everything and just creating a big problem. Okay, next is my YG23. We're going to go into those areas where you would see the most shading. Okay, next is the YG25. Now I'm going to blend all that stuff out with, or the YG25 with the YG23 again. And as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of consistency on how I do stuff because normally I would have done the entire marker line, or, you know, color family, which would have been the 21, 23, 25, and 67. But I did 21, 23, 25, back to 23, back to 25. Then I'll add a little bit of 67 here at the end. See, and I'm oversaturating it. So it's starting to kind of look juicy and weird. But that's, again, user error. So, right now I'm going to go in and just kind of blend those colors with my YG21. Just lightly, not every single. I'm not going to try and go over every single color. I'm going to try to just blend out the original YG21, if that makes sense. Okay. And finally, with my YG67, I'm going to darken